Hi, and welcome to BioFix Physical Therapy and Fitness. My name is Phillip Carr, and today we're going to be talking about two important topics, and I'm going to tell you how they can relate to increased rehab potential, increased strength gains, increased muscle gains, and increased athletic performance, and the latter subject, how it can help with injury prevention. So the two topics are active insufficiency and passive insufficiency. And these are important because they pertain to muscles that cross two joints, so two joint muscles. And it talks about how they can shorten and lengthen and how the muscle force generation can change depending if you're shortening over one joint, that particular muscle, or over two joints. So the muscles that I'm kind of going to talk about the most are going to be the hamstring muscles, the rectus femoris, the gastrocnemius, and the biceps. So those are the four I feel like the most recognizable muscles when it comes to this topic. So if we take the hamstrings, for example, and we put them into the hamstring muscles into a double shortened position. So we're in a hook lying position, let's say, for a glute bridge. I'm going to be extending at my hip, and I'm also going to be flexing at my knee. Now that's a double shortening of that muscle over two joints, and when that happens, I get decreased force production. That's what happens. Now in this situation with the glute bridge, that is what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to target that glute muscle, that glute max, and we're trying to shut off those hamstrings. And that we're kind of using active insufficiency to our advantage. That's our goal. Maybe, following the glute bridge, maybe you want to do a straight-legged bridge on a physio ball. We actively want to recruit those hamstrings. So just kind of manipulating that posture and just the change in one of those joint positions can either decrease significantly or increase significantly muscle recruitment. So if we go to next the gastric muscle, gastrocnemius, you have the seated calf raise versus the standing calf raise. Now, when you're standing, you're getting good gastroc activation. You're in your knee is extended, you're standing straight and tall, and you're only shortening over one joint, which is the ankle joint. You're plantar flexing, going up on your toes, and then coming back down. Compared to the seated calf raise, which people are like, oh, it targets your soleus. We're just working the soleus muscle. Well, the reason that's happening is because we're basically telling the gastroc, you know what? Take a little time off. We're going to take care of this. I'm soleus. We're the main mover, plantar flexor of the ankle. Once we stand back up, you can kind of start contributing again. So if you look at the gastroc and its functions, it is a knee flexor and a plantar flexor, meaning pointing the toe and bending the knee. So we are in a seated position. We are bent at the knee, shortened over one joint, and then plantar flexing, pointing the toe, shortening over another joint. That limits that muscle force generation, and it limits the contribution of that muscle to that specific exercise. So when you do your seated calf raises, you are targeting that soleus specifically. Now, you can use this principle for rehab too. So if you're doing a standing hamstring curl or a standing knee bend, you're trying to, you just had surgery and you're trying to get more range of motion actively. If you stand completely straight up and the leg that you're going to be bending is hip extended and you're bending at that knee, that hamstring is going to a double shortened position. And that's kind of like, unless you really generate a lot of momentum and kick up from the floor, if you're doing it nice and slow and controlled, you're probably not bending your knee past 90 to 100 degrees. If you either lean forward slightly or let your knee come forward slightly, you're going to get more knee bend. So that's how it kind of pertains in a rehab type environment. And the same can go for gaining muscle and just increasing strength too. If you look at a lot of the machines that are at gyms, again, the standing hamstring curl, most of them, they kind of have you angled slightly forward. And that's because they realize with active insufficiency, you're going to be able to target that hamstring more if you do have a forward bend. Same thing goes with a prone hamstring curl where you're laying on your tummy. If you're laying flat, that surface for your chest and your torso, and then there's normally a decline where you put your legs. Again, that's designed to make it so you're targeting that hamstring that much more effectively. So if we move on to the next subject, I kind of consider this more of the injury prevention. And I'm probably going to just mainly again talk about the hamstrings. I feel this is more applicable to them. For sports, I'd say running, sprinting, dancers, and martial artists. You're requiring a lot of range of motion, and with the runners, actually both, all of them, sometimes you're requiring a lot of speed. And basically, conversely to active insufficiency, which is a shortening of a muscle over two joints, passive insufficiency is the lengthening over two joints. And what happens is a lot of our, I'll take myself for example. I'm not the most flexible person, and my muscle, when I'm shortening over two joints, will run out of real estate, and that causes me to compensate. For example, if I do a forward bend and I'm trying to touch my toes, I'll get a certain amount coming from my hips, and then boom, I've run out of hamstring flexibility, and the rest starts to contribute from my spine. That's a compensation. That's the true definition of passive insufficiency. You run out of real estate in that the length of that muscle. The same thing goes with the rectus femoris, which is one of the quad muscles. If you kind of go into that half kneel position, and you're trying to stretch the rectus, you in that lunge position with the back knee on the ground, you lean forward so you're in a hip extended position, and then you kind of try and bring your heel up towards your butt. You feel that deep stretch on the front of the leg. I personally run out of real estate unless I compensate by increasing that arch in my lower back, that increased lumbar lordosis, or I just kind of come out of the hip extended position a little more. So that's kind of be mindful when you see, I see a ton of images of people, commercials advertising where they're doing that specific stretch for the rectus femoris, and they look like they're about ready to shoot an arrow, like a bow. The lower back is. So just kind of keep that in mind. So this is also for the injury prevention. It kind of touches on the warm up. When you are looking at the range of motion of shortening over two joints, and this can be also for any muscle going over even a single joint, just kind of make sure you're warming up slower and in a range of motion that's kind of more friendly to you. Don't go from 0 to hero. Kind of warm up, wait until your core temperature elevates, the muscle temperature kind of increases, and you're getting that flexibility, and you're kind of warming up. And then you can kind of push the envelope, meaning you can increase the speed, increase the range of motion across the two joint muscles and single joint muscles. So you're limiting your potential of injury. So I hope those little tidbits have helped. My name is Phillip Carr. This is BioFix Physical Therapy. Have a good one.